There's many different ways in which you could prepare this coconut sorbet. This is just my way of making it. This is done in a Puerto Rican style where we call it helado de coco. And the best part is that you don't need the fresh coconut or to live in the tropics to make this. Now to make this recipe, what you're gonna need is 1 can of cream of coconut, 1 can of coconut milk. You need to make sure it's a good quality. You need 1 cup of water. You're also gonna need half a teaspoon of cornstarch, 1/8 of a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and half a cup of white granulated sugar. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to mix our cornstarch with the sugar. And we do this because for me, this is the best way we can mix in the cornstarch. If not, we're gonna get little lumps of cornstarch, and that's not good in this recipe. Now, if you don't have any cornstarch and you need a substitute, the best thing you could use is xanthan gum, but you'll need a lot less than what you would of the cornstarch. You'll need about 1/8 of a teaspoon of the xanthan gum. Then you want to mix this until you see no clumps. It doesn't matter if it's cornstarch or xanthan gum, you just want to see just regular granulated sugar. Now we need to prepare our simple syrup because this needs to cool before adding it to the rest of the ingredients. So you're going to take a small pan, place it over high heat. We're going to add the water and the sugar. This is going to cook for 3 minutes, and while it cooks, we are going to make sure that we stir all the time because we don't want our cornstarch to get clumpy. Now, if you ever made a simple syrup before, you'll know that the simple syrup is clear in color. It almost looks like water. This one is not going to have the same color. This one is going to be cloudy, but it's because of the cornstarch. But this is normal. Don't worry about it. You just need to make sure you don't have no sugar in the bottom of your pan, and that's how you know it's ready. Now, after the simple syrup is done, just set it aside and let it cool while we prepare the rest of the mix. Now, the first thing I like to mix is the cream of coconut. Now, when buying the cream of coconut, you need to be careful. You need to really read the can. It needs to say cream of coconut, not coconut cream, because that one is not sweet like the cream of coconut. And the cream of coconut, as you see here, is going to have a hard top, and that's all the sugar and the fat from the coconut. Now, the cream of coconut that you see me using here is by the brand Goya, but you don't have to use Goya. You could use whatever brand you find. And if it was up to me, I will be using Coco Lopez brand, but it's kind of hard to find. That is going to depend on where you are, but don't worry too much about brands. Just use whatever you could find in the supermarket. And please make sure we scraping that can because cream of coconut is not cheap. It tends to be more on the pricey side. So make sure you get everything out. Now we're going to mix the cream of coconut until we no longer see any lumps whatsoever. You should have a very smooth mix. And if you wonder if you could just mix everything in a blender, the answer is technically yes, but I'd rather you not. And the reason for this is that when you mix all of this in a blender, it's going to form bubbles on top and it's going to form like a foam that you don't want in a sorbet recipe. So this is a recipe that we're better off doing by hand. And now we're going to add the coconut milk. And as you can see here, I like to add my ingredients one by one so I can make sure that everything is mixed in well. Now let's talk about the coconut milk. Now the best milk you could use in this recipe, of course, is always going to be fresh coconut milk, but that's not possible for most of us. So the best second thing we could do is get a good quality coconut milk like this one. Some of the best ones that I've tried before are the Goya brand, the Thai Kitchen one, even the Great Value from Walmart is pretty good. And make sure you're using the canned coconut milk. Do not use the coconut milk that comes in a carton because that one tends to be super watery and it lacks the fat that we need in this recipe. Now, after you added your coconut milk, make sure to mix until you no longer see any lumps. Then you need to add the vanilla extract and mix it in. You can also use a vanilla bean in this recipe. You just have to open it and scrapes the inside and all of that, just add it in. And then just mix. Now the final ingredient that we need to add is the simple syrup that we made earlier, but we need to make sure that it's completely cooled before we add it in. Then we're going to mix this for at least 15 seconds just to make sure that everything is incorporated well. And if you did use a blender to mix all of this, just let your mix rest so all the bubbles could come up and pop. Now let's talk about the molds that you're gonna need to make this. This small mold that you see right here is 8.5 by 4.5 and it's from Dollar Tree. And this is the one I like to use because the mix fits perfectly to the line. Now, in reality, you could use any mold you like. It could be metal like this one, big, small, plastic, glass. It doesn't matter much. What it changes is how fast or how slow your mix is gonna freeze. In the description below, I'll leave the links to all of these molds just in case you want to get one. And now all we have to do is pour our mix into our mold. Now, if we freeze our mold before we add in our mix, this will help with the freezing process and it'll just make it a little bit faster. Now, since we're not using an ice cream machine, this is going to be a process in the first 2 hours of this recipe. What we're going to do is we're going to put our mix in our freezer for 30 minutes. And then we're going to remove it from the freezer. And what we're going to do is we're going to scrape the sides to make sure nothing is stuck to the sides, and you're also gonna do this to the bottom of your pan. This process is gonna help us to get a super creamy and super soft sorbet. It's gonna be almost like tasting a coconut ice cream. Then this same process, we're gonna repeat it 3 more times. So for the first 2 hours of this recipe, you're gonna take it out of the freezer every 30 minutes and you're gonna mix, always making sure that you're scraping on the sides, the corners, and the bottom of your pan. Now, you could really get away with only doing it twice, like one for each hour, but I really like to do it every 30 minutes because I want to make sure I have the consistency of the sorbet that I'm looking for. Now, this is how we do the sorbet without an ice cream machine, but if you have an ice cream machine, you could definitely use this recipe in your machine. The first thing you'll need to do is just freeze your ice cream machine bowl while you mix everything. Then just put your mix in your bowl and let the machine just work its magic. Now, for us doing the freezer method, after you do your last scrape, make sure you cover your mold with foil because you don't want any of the freezer smells to get in your sorbet. And after we finish doing all the mixing, we need to freeze this for at least 6 hours. But ideally, you will leave this overnight so it could be nice and frozen for the next day. Now, how long it takes to get frozen, it could vary a little bit depending on many factors, like your freezer or how cold or hot is your kitchen. Then all we have to do is enjoy. Now, whenever you're ready to serve this, leave it out for at least 30 seconds to 1 minute because it will be hard to scoop out. But after you start scraping, you're gonna see that it's easier to come out. Now, this sorbet recipe for me is very nostalgic because this is just like what I used to have in Puerto Rico as a child. This is often served in small carts around the beaches of Puerto Rico, and they are absolutely delicious. This sorbet is so creamy that you'll truly think that you're eating ice cream instead of a sorbet. Now, this sorbet, I remember I used to eat this sorbet along with the passion fruit sorbet. Ooh, the mix is just heaven. I'll link the recipe down below just in case you want to make that one as well. And now look how delicious this coconut sorbet looks. Now, let me show you what I like to do with my leftover coconut sorbet. And what I like to do instead of leaving it in the mold, what I like to do is just divide it between all the coconut shells that I have. But you probably already seen this being sold in the supermarkets, but they tend to be quite pricey. That's why I rather do it myself because it's a really easy recipe. Then after I fill the coconut shell, I just make sure I put it nice and flat so I could then cover it. And then the coconut shells is a really nice presentation. But you could use any small dish you have to divide it. Now, thank you for watching the video y buen provecho.